I got one idea that I'm especially psyched out of my mind about. You know, it's one of those ideas where you're just like, yes!
Dave? Dave Flynn?
On the radio!
Hold on to your butts.
Hey there, welcome to Dave Flynn on the radio, the number one blogcast on the internet. I'm Dave Flynn, and since reading is hard, I'm going to do it for you. So, I just sent book number 2, a book about trust, out to editors, and what came back was a total joke, or maybe a slap in the face, I'm not sure which. A flood of polished, professional, and completely impersonal pitches came from people whose whole job is understanding voice, understanding connection. And then one person actually read the work, God bless, and they pushed back, earning my trust, which, it turns out, is the whole point of the book. You can find more stories and essays like this at winwithflynn.com, but if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's jump into the show. The editors. Frequent readers know that I'm close to completing my second book, a book I've been working on for the past year. It covers a topic that has intrigued me for quite some time, trust. The working title for much of that year was Trust Book, How to Grow It and How to Blow It. But most recently, I was working to find a developmental editor to collaborate on the project, now operating under the slightly more marketable name Shift to Trust. A business book, sure, but hopefully more. It discusses the move from transactional relationships to something deeper, what I call uppercase trust, a framework for building trust that I've been chewing on since a warfighter from Fort Lewis looked me dead in the eye and asked, "Why the hell should I trust you?" I didn't have an answer on that day, but I do now, and that's what's in the book. Well, in a nutshell. But you came here to learn about the editors, and learn you will. I posted the project on Reedsy. Reedsy is like Monster.com or Fiverr. It's a marketplace to connect writers and editors. I attached an overview of the book, listed the areas I needed assistance, and included a sample of my introduction, about 3,000 words. What happened next felt like a cosmic joke. For context, here's what good looks like. One editor, Landon, wrote back to say that he was fully booked. He couldn't take on any new projects. It was a decline, a dead end. But he wished me well and said I had a cool blog. He said he was more of a Fish fan than the Grateful Dead, which was a nod to the Deadhead case study I referenced in my project summary. Maybe he only read the summary. Maybe he never even clicked through to the blog. But he read enough to say something real, something specific, something that made me feel like a person, like a writer, and not just a project number. That decline connected more than any of the pitches that I'd receive. And you know what? I'm definitely including Landon on my next editorial search. Seems like a great guy. See how that works? An editor, at least a developmental editor, is not a human spell checker. They need to understand your voice. They need to see the frameworks, the structure, and the narrative arc, not for what it is, but for what it could be. They need to put themselves in the seat of the reader. What's confusing? What's unnecessary? What is vital? The proposals came in, and every single one of them, from people whose entire professional identity is built around understanding voice and story and human connection, they all sent form letters. Not bad form letters, perfectly competent, professionally formatted, impressively thorough, generic form letters. Bullet points, deliverables, credentials, and of course, their rate per word. Not one of them, not one, mentioned my book. None of them mentioned the sample or the ideas. Every single proposal included a declaration, sometimes bolded, sometimes right at the top, that no AI would be used in this project. This was positioned as a differentiator, I suppose, the human touch, the proof that they actually cared, proof that they'd do the work, not Claude or Gemini. And what did they send instead of AI-generated content? Something so much worse. A slip sheet, a brochure, a flyer with their name at the top. The kind of thing that you'd stuff in a folder at a trade show and throw away at the airport. AI would have at least read the sample. Let me introduce you to a few of the contestants. Laura sent a thorough, well-organized proposal, 2 rounds of edits, competitive pricing, good credentials. No mention of the manuscript, the subject matter, or any indication she'd read a single word. When I sent a follow-up asking for her initial thoughts on the sample, she replied, asking if I'd already made a decision, and if not, she could, quote, take another look, unquote. Take another look? I've played that game before, Laura. It worked well in Mrs. Murphy's 7th grade language arts. I told Laura I had not made a decision yet, and if she'd still be interested, I'd love to hear some initial thoughts. You know what she came back with? Dinkus. Yeah, dinkus. Now, that may sound like a pejorative. It may sound a little bit phallic, but it's a real piece of editing that should be considered. It's also super lame. Dinkus is, well, on the blog I show you, you know those 3 little asterisks that I use to separate paragraphs? That's Dinkus. Dinkus is a generic typographic device used to mark a section or scene break. And while the term was new to me, and I thank Laura for introducing it, my use of Dinkus does not show any understanding of the subject at hand. You could look at the page cross-eyed from 23 feet and see my Dinkus. I need and want someone who will engage with the work, not the formatting. Laura did not land the job. Sarah had a Wharton Press background, legit, impressive even. When I asked for specifics from her, she told me she, quote, couldn't provide detailed feedback at this stage, unquote, but wanted me to know that she was, I'll quote again here, rejecting the majority of inquiries and believed she could take my project to the next level, unquote. Now, I'll give you just a bit of a teaser, but the first stage in building trust, the jumping off point for my whole book, is transparency. That she would have known if she had just read the sample. Instead, she used credentials. She used scarcity. She used tools of influence. Instead of trust, she used 25 years of experience as a shield instead of just engaging with the work. Sarah did not land the job. And despite my frustration, I still needed an editor. So I couldn't quit on everyone. I sent a simple question to all of the editors that had responded with their spam. I said, from your reading of the sample, do you see any structural challenges? And is there anything you'd want to know about the rest of the manuscript? No hints, no coaching, just an open door. If they read it, did even a single thought flow through those big, highly credentialed brains? The question was designed to do one thing: find out if anyone had even the shallowest thought about the book. A good answer didn't have to be right, it just had to be specific. Show me you were inside the work, even for 20 minutes, and I'd be grateful and interested in working with you. I was also looking for editors to self-select. If they read it, was it of any interest to them? Or were they just making a bid because they had time on the calendar and a mortgage to pay? I was looking for a collaborator that felt something, anything about the book. One editor, the one I hired, came back on a Saturday afternoon and said the subject of trust was a good one. Thank you. He said that Stephen M.R. Covey deserves a lot of the credit for the current material on this subject, to which I agree, and that he had even interviewed Covey on the very topic. You don't say. He asked for some time to sit with my sample and promised a response on Monday. Of course. On Monday, he sent me 3 paragraphs breaking down the structural tension in the introduction. He mapped my own A-B framework back to me, identified where the logic didn't close, and ended with this, quote, "A lack of specific and unique core thesis is a lot harder to overcome, and that's definitely not the problem here." He understood the work. He could see where it was going. He identified some potential pitfalls. And then, to close, he gave me hope. The Mary Poppins treatment, a spoonful of sugar. God bless you, Chris. You're hired. What I found interesting, outside of my prolific use of Dinkus, the only pushback I received was from Chris. He questioned whether my story grid approach was the right scaffolding for a nonfiction book that already had a clear framework. He emphasized the need for 3 acts and the goal of walking readers towards the conclusion where they would be delighted because it will be both surprising and obvious. That is how you get an aha moment that sticks with someone. He asked hard questions. He didn't just tell me what I wanted to hear. And that's why I hired him. There's an old saying that a problem well stated is a problem half solved. And for any editor that was interested in this project, all the clues were there for them, right in my request, right in the question. I'm writing a book about trust. The framework for building trust is in the sample. I also mentioned that my first book, Passing Notes to Strangers, was edited on Reedsy. Now, I'm not expecting 2 edits for the price of 1, and I realize they don't have the time to read my sample and my first book just to land a gig, but any inquiring mind must have wondered, what is Passing Notes to Strangers all about? Of course, because I wrote the book on the subject, I'm a note-passing psychopath. So I modeled good behavior to them. When I reached out to the editors, I acknowledged their specific portfolios and their proposals. I told them what I was looking for and why generic pitches weren't helping me make a decision. I left space for them to respond without embarrassing themselves. I gave Laura a genuine second chance with a warm, specific, and, if I do say so myself, funny message that basically handed her the answers. I was, in other words, passing notes to strangers like a boss. The idea that a single specific personal note cuts through more noise than 1,000 polished pitches. The editor of Passing Notes to Strangers, Ray, he won my business doing this very thing. His proposal had all the relevant information on his work product and pricing, but it had something even more important. He said he could see influences from Seth Godin and Stephen Pressfield in my writing. My reaction? Hell yeah, that's kind of what I'm going for here. He understood what I was building before I had to explain it. That was it. He had me. But in this case, the cobbler's children have no shoes. The editors who help other people find their voice couldn't find their own. Copy, paste, send, and then delete. Are these bad people? Are they bad editors? No, I don't think so. I think they're freelancers running a volume game, and the volume game doesn't reward the extra 30 minutes it takes to read a sample and write something real. But that 30 minutes is exactly what connects perfect strangers. It's what separates a transaction from a trusting tribe. It's the difference between the marble in the jar mentality and real, lasting trust. To be fair, Maybe I'm the strange one. It could be that other writers aren't as precious about it. They just want to know availability and star rating and cost. The editors are serving that customer. So I had to ask them, to read the sample and have a thought about it. But I can't help it. When my first book came out, a friend sent the link to everyone we knew. Someone on the thread had just had a baby, and he wrote, "Dave gave birth as well." It's a book, man. It is personal. Chris starts soon. I'm excited to share what we create. There we have it. That's the pod. Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear, please share it with a friend. Give it a thumbs up. And if you've got a few extra seconds, give it a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify or wherever you are listening. The engagement will make you feel so good, and it'll help other people find the show. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
All right, there you go, America. I love you. I'm proud of you. I mean it. We gotta go. This is great.